temperature on lubricant and viscosity index, no, and how to find the viscosity index of different oils. Basically, viscosity index is the measure of the temperature dependency of viscosity of any lubricating oil. So as the temperature goes on changing, you know that viscosity also goes on changing. But for a small rise in temperature, there should not be very large change in viscosity. Otherwise, what happens? It will affect the property of the lubricant and it may affect the operation of the bearing also. So that is why this viscosity should not change too much with respect to temperature. And viscosity index is the measure of that property. That is, if viscosity index is very large, then what happens? For even a large change in temperature, there will not be much change in the viscosity of the lubricating oil. Okay. Now, let us discuss about this. I hope I am audible, no? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Let us discuss about the effect of pressure on the viscosity of lubricating oil. In the last class, we have seen effect of temperature on the viscosity of oils. Now, today we will discuss effect of pressure on the viscosity of oils. So, when there is a change in pressure, what happens to the viscosity? That we will see. Okay. So, here you can see from this graph that as the pressure goes on increasing, the viscosity of the lubricating oil, what is happening? It will also goes on increasing. Okay. As the pressure goes on increasing, you see here pressure is on x-axis and absolute viscosity is on y-axis. It is atmospheric pressure, 500 atmospheric pressure or 500 bar, you can call 1000 bar, like that. As the pressure goes on increasing, pressure on the lubricating oil. If suppose you are using an external pump to pump the lubricating oil, what happens? The pressure in the lubricating oil changes. As the pressure in the lubricating oil goes on increasing, the absolute viscosity of the lubricating oil also goes on increasing. For castor oil is a vegetable oil. You can see that for castor oil, there is no much change in the viscosity with respect to pressure. But whereas you see for mineral oil, it is a steep curve, no? Means what does it mean? Even for a small change in pressure, there is a drastic change in the viscosity of the lubricating oil. Okay. So here, to give the relation between this change in pressure and change in viscosity, this Boras, he in 1893 proposed the following relationship for liquids. For liquids, we can use this expression, that is, for liquids, it is eta is equal to eta naught exponential of alpha into p. Exponential of alpha into p means what? E raised to alpha into p. Is it clear? So where eta is what? Viscosity at pressure p. Means we want to find the viscosity at certain pressure p, that is the parameter which you want to determine, and where eta naught is the viscosity at normal pressure. So if we want to determine the viscosity at any different pressure, first we should know the viscosity at normal pressure. What is the normal pressure and temperature? You know that our normal temperature is 25 degrees Celsius NTP, and normal pressure is how much? 101.32 kilo Pascal. That is the normal pressure. Okay. So you have to first determine the viscosity at normal pressure. You should know that one. Once you know that one, and once you know the pressure coefficient of viscosity, that is alpha, whose value is 2 into 10 raised to minus 8 per Pascal at 38 degrees Celsius. By using this expression, we can find viscosity of any oil at any pressure. That is eta. We can find. Okay. Then Rowlands, he also proposed one more relationship in 1966, that is log of eta plus 1.2 is equal to log of eta naught plus 1.2. 2 into another bracket 1 plus P by 2000 bracket raised to Z1, where P is the pressure at which you want to determine the viscosity. In this case also, P is what? P is the pressure at which you want to determine the viscosity of the lubricating oil. Okay. So by using this expression also, we can able to find this eta, that is viscosity of the lubricating oil at pressure P. Okay. Where what is Z1? Z1 is a dimensionless constant known as viscosity pressure index. This Z1 is a dimensionless constant. It don't have any unit. It is called as viscosity pressure index. Hence, suppose there is a change in temperature also and change in pressure also. You know the Charles law and Boyle's law. Whenever there is a rise in temperature, there will be rise in pressure also. P is directly proportional to T, no? Whenever there is a rise in pressure, there will be rise in temperature also, according to Boyle's law. Okay. P is inversely proportional to volume and directly proportional to temperature. So here what happens? Hence, suppose there is a combined change in both temperature and also pressure on the lubricating oil. At that time, what happens? We want a combined relationship. So combined relationship is given by eta is equal to eta naught exponential of alpha into P plus beta into bracket 1 by T minus 1 by T naught. Here this alpha into P is taken from these expressions here. Exponent of alpha into P is from the Boras relationship, whereas this beta into bracket 1 by T minus 1 by T naught is the relationship which we have used to determine the temperature dependencies here. This one. What is this? This is the mathematical expression for viscosity temperature relationship, which we have already discussed in the last class. Okay, by combining this relationship and the relationship for this change in pressure, we are able to get the combined equation which will determine the viscosity at certain pressure and certain temperature, at different pressure and different temperatures. Okay, by using this expression. Okay, and you know that viscosity of lubricating oil increases with increase in pressure. For mineral oil, there is a very large increase in the viscosity for a small change in pressure, whereas for castor oil or vegetable oils, there is less change in viscosity with the change in pressure. Okay, this is about effect of pressure on lubricating oils. Now let us discuss about different types of lubrication. Okay, so here the friction between two surfaces moving relative to each other depends upon a number of factors. It does not, the friction between two surfaces does not depend on only one or two factors, but there are so many factors are there which are affecting the friction between two moving surfaces. What are those? First one is applied load. If the applied vertical load is greater than, some value, there also friction goes on increasing. Then relative velocity between the surfaces. Whatever the relative velocity is there between the surfaces, when the two surfaces are moving with respect to each other, that this friction also depends on relative velocity of the surfaces. Then friction also depends on geometry of the surfaces. Geometry of the surfaces means what? The surface may be rough, or the surface may be smooth, or the surface may be circular in geometry, or in case of bearing and shaft. How is the surface? They are circular in geometry. Whereas if the two flat surfaces are sliding on each other, for example, the tool post of the lathe sliding on lathe guideways, there what happens? It is a flat surface. So it depends on geometry of the surfaces also. Then physical and chemical properties of the lubricant also. Different properties of the lubricant, for example, viscosity of the lubricant, density of the lubricant, and this composition of the lubricant. On that also the friction between the two sliding surfaces depends, as well as physical and chemical properties of the metal also. Which are the two metals that are coming in contact? For example, steel with steel. Suppose the bearing is made of steel and shaft is also steel, then steel with steel is there. But suppose the bearing is made of bearing bushes, which are made of brass or bronze or gunmetal, then what happens? The metals changes. the interacting metal changes. Bearing is the different material, whereas shaft is different material. There also the friction changes. Okay. Then, based on all these conditions, following principal types of sliding friction lubrication are existing. Okay. Sliding friction lubrication means what? In case of journal bearings or in case of flat surface sliding on another surface, then these three types of lubrication are existing in those cases, in the journal bearing and in other cases. It does not holds good for ball bearings or roller bearings. It is only for journal bearings, that is sliding type of friction. Here, sliding friction lubrication. Okay, so first type is fluid film lubrication. This is also discussed in design of machine element. I think in bearings you will discuss now hydrodynamic lubrication system, hydrodynamic bearings. There also you have discussed already these fluid film lubrication system. First one is fluid film lubrication system. In fluid film lubrication system, what happens? This is an ideal lubrication system. Means what? A thick film of lubricant will be present in between the two sliding surfaces. Here, this is one sliding surface. This upper is the moving surface and lower one is the stationary surface. Between these two surfaces, a very thick film of lubricating oil is existing, so that this thick film of lubricating oil will not allow this metal to come in contact with this metal. So this metal will be always floating on this lubricating oil film in case of fluid film lubrication. So fluid film lubrication is the ideal lubrication system and very best lubrication system, is very much desirable. Okay. So in the condition of operation of a lubricated bearing in which the film of lubricant is so thick, so lubricating oil film is very thick, that metal to metal contact between the moving parts is prevented. So metal to metal contact is avoided, and the only friction, when the metal to metal contact is avoided, here always the lubricant is present in between the two metal surfaces. Then whatever the friction existing between the two surfaces is only due to fluid friction, that is due to friction of the lubricating oil, because of the viscosity of the lubricating oil. When the lubricating oil is also having some resistance, no, to its own flow, then whatever the resistance to its own flow is there, that will create some amount of friction in the molecules of the lubricants. When the molecules of the lubricants are rubbing against each other, at that time some friction is created, and in a fluid film lubrication, the only friction existing is fluid friction. And you know that fluid friction is always very, very less compared to metal friction or solid friction. In metal to metal contact or in solid friction, what happens? The friction will be very, very high. So we don't prefer metal to metal contact, or we don't prefer solid friction. So in ideal lubrication system, in fluid film lubrication system, always lubricating oil is present in between the two surfaces. Hence, the the only friction existing is due to fluid friction. Okay. The fluid friction is considerably less than metal to metal friction. You know that one. And under these conditions, the viscosity of the lubricant is the most important factor. If the viscosity is very high, then what happens? No doubt that it will create a very thick oil film, but along with that, it will create some resistance to the flow. And when there is a resistance to the flow, fluid friction also increases. That is why I told you in the last class that when you change the oil of the engine oil of your bike, in the beginning for some kilometers, for maybe about 100 or 200 kilometers, the bike will give less mileage. But after that 200-300 kilometers, again the bike will give better mileage. Why? Because in the beginning, when we top up with fresh oil, when we change the engine oil with fresh, replace the old engine oil with fresh oil, the fresh oil is always having high viscosity. Due to that, fluid friction will be more. Hence, a small amount of decrease in mileage will be there. Small decrease in mileage. For example, suppose your bike is giving say 50, it may give 46 or 47. Okay, this is about fluid film lubrication system. Hence, in fluid film lubrication system, viscosity of the lubricant is the most important property, since it determines the bearing friction, temperature rise, rate of flow of lubricant through the bearing, and load carrying capacity of the bearing. So load carrying capacity also depends on viscosity. In the last class we have discussed, if the viscosity is high, then load carrying capacity of the bearing will also be very high. A well-designed shaft bearing operating under conditions of relatively moderate loads and sufficiently high speeds and with an ample supply of oil having proper viscosity will operate with fluid film lubrication. So in the bearings where the load on the shaft is very low, the load on the shaft or bearing is very low and is moderate, and if the shaft is operating at a sufficiently high speed and also the supply of oil is also very good, then what happens, this fluid film lubrication system will be existing in that bearing. Okay, then let us discuss about second type of lubrication system, that is boundary lubrication system. This is the figure for boundary lubrication system. In the boundary lubrication system, you see this thickness of the oil film, it has reduced, no, only this much thickness is there, very small. You see this dotted line and this dotted line, a very small thickness of oil film is present in between the two metal surfaces, whereas this surface is what, it is not lubricating oil, but it is a metal surface in which some lubricating oil is absorbed, because you know that metals, no doubt, even you super finish, a small pores will be there on the metal, and in those small pores some lubricating oil gets absorbed and it will create a continuous oil film. So in boundary lubrication film system, or it is also called as film lubrication system, although the fluid film lubrication is always preferable, we know that fluid films lubrication system, that first type is very good and it is always preferable, but it can exist only under certain conditions. What are those conditions that we have discussed? That is when the load on the shaft is moderate, means it is not high, and when the viscosity of the lubricating oil is sufficient, and when the shaft is operating at sufficiently high speed, means when the shaft is rotating at a sufficiently high speed, only in that cases the pressure generated in the lubricating oil will be sufficient to take the load on the bearing, and it will be sufficient to separate two metal contacts. Okay, so in hydrodynamic lubrication system, you know that how is the hydrodynamic lubrication system principle. In journal bearing, what happens in journal bearing, when journal bearing means what, shaft and bearing, bush bearing. Okay? In journal bearing, when the shaft is rotating inside the bearing, at that time the lubricating oil present between the shaft and the bearing clearance, whatever the clearance between the shaft and the bearing is there, in that you know that lubricating oil will be completely filled, and when the lubricating oil is filled between the shaft and the bearing, and when the shaft is rotating at a sufficiently high speed, at that time the pressure is generated in the lubricating oil automatically. There is a generation of pressure in the lubricating oil because of squeezing of lubricating oil between the shaft and the bearing surfaces. So due to that, what happens, pressure will be generated in the lubricating oil. That pressure we are calling it as hydrodynamic pressure, and whatever the pressure generated in the lubricating oil, it will be sufficient to lift the shaft. So it will be sufficient to separate the shaft coming in contact with the bearing, so there will not be any metal to metal contact. But this can happen only when the speed of the shaft is sufficiently high. When the speed of the shaft is high, pressure generated in the lubricating oil is also high, so that pressure can easily separate the shaft and the bearing. It can make the shaft to float in the bearing because of high pressure. But you know that in the starting position and in the stopping position, when you start the machine, in the beginning what happens, the speed of the shaft is very low, and first the shaft is stationary, completely stationary, and shaft is resting on the bearing. There is a metal to metal contact between the shaft and the bearing, and later when slowly shaft starts rotating, even in the beginning also, the speed of the shaft is not sufficient to generate the required pressure to separate the two metal surfaces. So due to that, what happens? There is always a metal to metal contact. No doubt that some lubricating oil is there, but it cannot avoid the metal to metal contact. So in some period of time, some amount of metal to metal contact will be present. So that type of condition, we are calling it as boundary lubrication system or fluid film lubrication system. Means what? In the starting position and in the stationary position, what happens? The pressure generated in the lubricating oil is not sufficient to separate the two metal surfaces. Hence, what happens? Small amount of metal to metal contact is always existing in boundary lubrication system. Is it clear now? If the surfaces approach each other close enough so that boundary lubrication exists, hydrodynamic theory can no longer be used when analyzing the entire friction in the bearing, because there is no sufficient hydrodynamic generation of pressure. Due to that, what happens? There is always a metal to metal contact in boundary lubrication system. But that metal to metal contact is not a continuous contact. Means for some period of time, the metal will touches, this shaft will touches the bearing, and in some period of time, that shaft is separated from the bearing with the help of fluid film. So we call that type of lubrication system as boundary lubrication system. Then in the third type, that is extreme boundary lubrication system, what is happening? Here, the shaft and bearing are continuously touching each other in extreme boundary lubrication. The extent to which an absorbed film can prevent metal to metal contact is limited. Means there is no prevention of metal to metal contact in extreme boundary lubrication. Means it is a complete failure, actually, failure of the lubrication system. So these are the asperities, means roughness on the surface. So these are shown exaggerated, but actually seeing, when you see with the help of naked eyes, you can see that it is a smooth surface. But when we look at on in the when we zoom it or in the exaggerated manner, if we see it, we can see these surface asperities. Means these are called surface irregularities. So these surface asperities and surface irregularities, what they will do? They will they will make the metal to contact with another metal. Okay, and in extreme boundary lubrication system, always there is a metal to metal contact existing. See here there is a metal to metal contact. Here there is a metal to contact. So everywhere there will be metal to metal contact existing in extreme boundary lubrication systems. Hence, extreme boundary lubrication system is not preferred at all. But in some extreme cases, this exists. For example, if the load on the shaft is very, very high, at that time, also what happens? You cannot prevent whatever the pressure generated in the lubricating oil will not be sufficient to separate the shaft from the bearing. And if the temperature in the oil film is very, very high, at that time what happens? Viscosity of the lubricating oil decreases, and there is a possibility of metal to metal contact. Hence, this type of condition, we are calling it as extreme boundary lubrication. And extreme boundary lubrication is not at all preferred, and it is always a failure. Okay. Under boundary lubrication, and especially under extreme boundary lubrication conditions, in contrast to fluid film lubrication, the physical properties of bearing and journal materials becomes highly important. So here the physical properties of bearing and journal material is very, very important, because these are the one which will play a major role in separating the metal to metal contact, because other factors are not sufficient to separate the metal to metal contact. Okay. Next, these are the three types of lubrication system in sliding friction lubrication. Next, let us discuss about measurement of viscosity of lubricants. So what are the different methods used to measure the viscosity of a lubricating oil? So these, whatever the apparatus are there, no, the different apparatus or the instruments which are used to measure the viscosity of a lubricating oil, they are called as viscometers. These apparatus used to measure viscosity are called as viscometers. Okay. Hence, let us first discuss about Coulthard-Hatschuk viscometer. So in Coulthard-Hatschuk viscometer, what happens? It consists essentially of two cylinders. This is one outer cylinder and this is one inner cylinder. Okay. Here, outer cylinder is attached to a central shaft and inner cylinder is pivoted. So inner cylinder is completely pivoted, so it can rotate freely, inner cylinder. So here what happens? It consists of two cylinders. This is A and this is B. These are the two cylinders. The outer cylinder is A and inner cylinder is B. The outer cylinder is fixed to the table C. This outer cylinder, that is cylinder A, is fixed to table C. That is table C is fixed to the shaft. Okay. Which can be made to rotate about its vertical axis at constant speed. This table can be made to rotate about vertical axis. So when the table rotates, along with the table, this outer cylinder A will also rotate, because the outer cylinder is fixed to the table and the shaft. Okay. And this upper one is connected to the upper shaft is connected to B, whereas lower shaft is connected to table C or cylinder A. Okay. The inner cylinder B is suspended by torsion wire. So this is a torsion wire. The shaft is connected to a wire, torsion wire. It is suspended. Means what? It is completely floating. Malin in the okay. This is suspended with the help of this torsion wire. So this D is the torsion wire. Okay. And B is connected to this torsion wire D with the help of this shaft, so that when this B will rotate, this shaft will also rotate. Okay. When the outer cylinder rotates, that is when the cylinder A rotates, that what happens? The motion in the liquid between the two cylinders. So between the two cylinders, this is completely filled with the help of the test lubricating oil. Means the lubricating oil of which you want to find the viscosity, no? That lubricating oil is completely filled between this cylinder and this cylinder. So this cylinder is completely closed and this cylinder is suspended at the center. So between those cylinders, whatever the space is there, it is completely filled with the help of lubricating oil. So there what happens? When you rotate the outer cylinder, means when you rotate this shaft or this table C, outer cylinder A will start rotating. And when the outer cylinder A starts rotating, because if the viscosity of the lubricating oil present between this cylinder A and cylinder B, that liquid or the lubricating oil will make the B also to rotate. Okay? When A starts rotating at very high speed, B will also rotate, but at some small angle. And when the B rotates, here there is a deflection of this torsion wire, because B is suspended on this torsion wire. And when this there is a deflection of torsion wire, you can see the deflection on this measurement instrument. Okay. Hence, these two cylinders, cylinder A and cylinder B, what they are forming? They are forming parallel surface, no? You have seen Newton's law of viscosity. The Newton's law of viscosity, upper surface is the moving surface, whereas the lower surface is the stationary surface. No? In this same manner, here A is the moving surface, whereas B is the stationary surface. And as the A starts rotating, then what happens? The lubricating oil present between this cylinder and this cylinder, that is between A and B, it will make the cylinder B also to deflect. B will not rotate continuously, but B will deflect to some degrees. And when the B rotates to some degrees, this shaft and this wire also rotates with some degrees, and when they rotate to some degrees, this theta or the rotation angle is measured, and that theta will give the viscosity of the lubricating oil. Theta is directly proportional to the viscosity of the lubricating oil. Okay. The angular displacement of the inner cylinder is measured by the deflection of a beam of light. How to measure this one? So what they will do, they will send a beam of light on this mirror, and when this B rotates, this mirror will also rotate. And when the mirror will rotate, whatever the beam of light that is falling on this mirror will also, it will deflect. And when the beam of light deflects, that theta or the angle of deflection is measured. And that angle of deflection is directly proportional to the viscosity of the lubricating oil used. Okay. Is it clear now about Kaute-Haschek viscometer? Any doubt in this one? If any doubt in this one, I will explain again. You can ask. Okay. Shall we proceed to the next viscometer? Okay. Let us now discuss about next type of viscometer, that is called Flowers viscometer. So this viscometer is called as Flowers viscometer. This Flowers viscometer belongs to the category of so-called secondary viscometers. So Flowers viscometer is a secondary viscometer. By means of a secondary viscometer, the absolute viscosity of a liquid cannot be directly determined from the measurement obtained from the use of some liquid of known viscosity. Okay, means what? This Flowers viscosity comes under secondary viscometer, but whereas secondary viscometer means you cannot directly measure the absolute viscosity. You can measure the change in or difference in the viscosity. Okay. Hence, they are called secondary viscometers. To determine the viscosity by this Flowers viscometer, it must be calibrated first by the use of some liquid of known viscosity. So first it has to be calibrated with the help of some liquid of known viscosity. The Flowers viscometer is one of the simplest of this kind. It consists of a glass tube. So this outer one is, this is the glass tube with a small ball whose diameter is considerably smaller than the inner diameter of the tube. This small ball will be there. This diameter of the ball is very, very small compared to the inside diameter of this tube, glass tube. After the tube is placed in an inclined position, maybe at 15 degrees Celsius, what happens? Initially, what happens? This ball will be in at this position, and once you go on increasing this angle to 15 degrees Celsius, this ball will start moving from here to here. And this tube is completely filled with the lubricating oil whose viscosity is to be determined or measured. After the tube is placed in the inclined position, first tube is placed horizontally, then what they will do? At that time, this ball will be at this position. And they go on rotating this up to 15 degrees Celsius. Means next step, they will do it at 15 degrees Celsius. Inclined position at different angle, definite angle to the horizontal. The ball which is initially at left end. So ball is initially at left end. what happens? The ball will start moving, no? When the ball starts moving, it will come and contact here, and it's a electrical contact. When the ball will contact here, the sensor will determine the contact of this ball to this part. Hence, automatically the time required for the ball to reach from this end to this end will be measured with the help of stopwatch. Okay. Hence, this ball starts rolling down, and when the ball starts rolling, it will come and contact this point. And when it come and contact this point, we'll come to know that the ball has contacted here, and we'll measure the time required for the ball to roll from here to here. And that time required by the ball to roll from here to here, it will be directly proportional to the viscosity of the liquid or viscosity of the lubricating oil. So to test the lubricating oil viscosity at high pressure, this tube should be, instead of a glass tube, this tube should be made of metal. If the tube is made of metal, then electric contact is needed, because you cannot see the ball touching here. Okay? And means you can measure the viscosity at higher pressures also from this instrument. If the liquids tested by this instrument are of relatively low viscosity, the velocity and acceleration of motion of the ball are rather high. So if the viscosity of the lubricating oil is less, then ball will move at a faster rate from here to here. And when the ball comes and reaches here, there is an electrical contact which will determine the ball's contact, and it will give the signal. Okay, this is about Flowers viscometer. So next one is Mitchell's viscometer. This figure shows Mitchell viscometer. This instrument is called by its inventor as the workshop viscometer also. This Mitchell viscometer is also called by as workshop viscometer, and is designed on a principle completely different from those used for other viscometer. The principle of operation behind this instrument is completely different from those other viscometers. In addition to its pocket size, this instrument has the advantage that only a few drops of oil are required for a test. If some drops of lubricating oil is there, that much is sufficient to test the viscosity of lubricating oil. Okay. Then, in addition to its pocket size, this instrument has the advantage that only a few drops of oil are required for a test. So few drops, only 4 to 5 drops of oil is sufficient to test the viscosity of that lubricating oil. And also it is very small. We can keep it in the pocket. So that is why it is also called as workshop viscometer, because in the workshop, whatever the apron is there, no, it will fit in the pocket of that apron, what you are wearing. Okay. It consists essentially of a 1-inch stainless steel ball. This is a stainless steel ball of diameter 1 inch. And a spherical cup. Here there is a spherical cup is there in this instrument. This is a spherical cup whose diameter is exactly equal to the diameter of this steel ball. Okay. Having the same radius as that of the ball. So in the spherical cup, there are 3 small projections. There are 3 small projections like this in the spherical cup inside. 3 placed at a distance of 120 degrees apart. So 120 into 3 is 360. So in that round spherical cup, 3 projections are there, which are means 3 ribs are there. 3 ribs which are placed at a 120 degrees apart. Okay. The clearance between this and this ball and this cup is approximately 0.01 mm. Means even it is less than 0.01 mm. The hollow handle D. So D is the hollow handle of non-conducting material is connected to the cup. So this hollow handle is connected to the cup, and a thermometer is also used to measure the temperature of the cup. Suppose you want to determine the viscosity at different temperatures, then we can use this thermometer to determine what is the temperature and what is the viscosity at that temperature. Here, what they will do is, first, to determine the viscosity of oil, a small sample of the oil to be tested is placed in the cup. So first cup is, this is placed in the inverted position. So this will be in the inverted position, and in this cup they will put a few drops of the lubricating oil whose viscosity has to be measured. Then it will be in the inverted position. Okay. Like this, it will be in the inverted position. In the inverted position, in this cup, they will put few drops of lubricating oil whose viscosity is to be determined. Then they will place this steel ball on that cup. Okay. Then the whole instrument is inverted. Means once they will place this, the whole instrument is inverted. Means they will make it again like this. And when they will make it like this, because of the viscosity of the lubricating oil, the vacuum is created between the cup and the ball, steel ball. This vacuum will hold the ball in the cup for some period of time. After that, what happens? The ball will fall down. Okay. So whatever the time period to which this cup can hold the ball because of viscosity of lubricating oil, that time period is noted. Okay. So whatever the vacuum is created in the cup, because of that, the ball is held in the cup for some period of time, and that time is noted, and oil is gradually sucked in that grooves, and suddenly the ball will fall. As the thickness of the oil film goes on increasing, the ball will fall down. When the layer of the oil between the cup and the ball becomes so thick that it can no longer maintain the vacuum or negative pressure sufficient for supporting the weight of this steel ball, the ball will separate and fall down from the cup. The time required for this process is directly proportional to the absolute viscosity of the lubricating oil used. If this ball is held for a long period of time in the cup, then viscosity of the lubricating oil will be larger. If the ball is held for a small period of time, then viscosity of the lubricating oil is smaller. Means what does it mean? The time required means the time up to which this ball is held in the cup is directly proportional to the viscosity of the lubricating oil placed here. Okay. First time, what happens? First time when you are using it for first time, this instrument has to be calibrated by using some lubricating oil of known viscosity in order to establish the constant of proportionality. Okay. So if first time we have to use a lubricating oil of known viscosity and see how much time it will take, then that viscosity divided by time taken will give the constant of proportionality, and that constant of proportionality can be used for different lubricating oils. Okay. This is about Michel's viscometer. Any doubt in this one? These viscometers and the temperature, pressure dependent, and different types of lubrication. that is fluid film lubrication system, boundary lubrication system, and extreme boundary lubrication system. Any doubt in this? If you have any doubt, you can stop me and you can ask. Okay. Then, shall we move on to the next viscometer? Okay. So next one is Ostwald's viscometer. Next viscometer is called as this one, Ostwald's viscometer. This Ostwald viscometer, I think you have used in your physics or chemistry lab in the first year. This type of viscometer, you are using it to determine the viscosity of that acetone liquid. Okay, so this Ostwald viscometer, its principle is completely different from that of the previous viscometers. So it operates on capillary action. You know capillary tube. Capillary tube is what? The length of the tube is very large, whereas the diameter of the tube is very small. Then what happens when you dip that capillary tube in a liquid? Liquid will rises in that capillary tube because of viscosity of that liquid. So that action we are calling it as capillary action. Okay. So in Ostwald viscometer, it is the most convenient and most accurate method for measuring viscosity by determining the rate of flow of liquid through a capillary tube. So in the Ostwald viscometer, what we'll do? We'll measure the rate of flow of liquid, time taken by the liquid to flow in the capillary tube, that we'll note down. So this method is based on Hagen-Poiseuille law. We'll discuss this Hagen-Poiseuille law in the next class, in the coming classes. So this Ostwald viscometer operates on the principle of Hagen-Poiseuille law. The Ostwald viscometer is an instrument widely used in laboratory work for measuring kinematic viscosity. So the previous viscometers which we have discussed, they were measuring directly the absolute viscosity, but whereas this Ostwald viscometer will measure the kinematic viscosity. What is kinematic viscosity? Absolute viscosity divided by density of the liquid. Absolute viscosity by density is called as kinematic viscosity. Kinematic viscosity is determined by measuring the time required for a liquid level to drop from Mark 1 to Mark 2. Okay. This instrument is usually made of glass and during the operation is immersed in a temperature controlled bath. Okay. Here a water bath is there with a proper temperature control. Means we want, if suppose you want to measure the viscosity at certain temperature, for example say 45 degrees Celsius, then keep the temperature of this water as 45 degrees Celsius and completely place this instrument in the water bath. And then what we'll do is we'll fill these two tubes with the help of the lubricating oil whose viscosity is to be determined. Okay. Then what we'll do is, once you leave that one, what happens? Whatever the lubricating oil filled in tube A and tube flask A and flask B, it will go on dropping and will flow to the flask C or measuring flask C. And what we do is, once the level of the lubricating oil starts dropping, when it comes to this 1.1, we'll start the stopwatch. And when this level of the lubricating oil goes on dropping and when it comes to 0.2, we'll stop the stopwatch. Then we'll measure the time required for the lubricating oil level to drop from 0.1 to 0.2. Because of this capillary action, the lubricating oil will be slowly flowing into this C. We'll measure the time required for the lubricating oil to flow from 1 to 2, and that time is directly proportional to kinematic viscosity here. That time is T and K is the constant of proportionality. So kinematic viscosity is determined by K into T, where T is the time required for the lubricating oil level to drop from 1 to 2. This K constant value K is determined by using a lubricating oil of known viscosity. First you take a lubricating oil of known viscosity, then you see how much time it will take, and you will be knowing the kinematic viscosity because it is a known liquid. Then K is equal to what? This kinematic viscosity nu by T. You will get the K for this instrument. Once you get K for this instrument, then for any other liquid, kinematic viscosity can be determined by using that value of K into time taken by the liquid to flow from 1 to 2. Like this, the viscosity of the oil is measured in Oswald viscometer. Is it clear?